The call came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon while rain tapped softly against my kitchen window. I was halfway through making tea, watching the steam curl into the air, when my phone buzzed across the counter. My daughter Zara's name flashed on the screen. We hadn't spoken properly in weeks, maybe months if I was honest. Our conversations had grown shorter, colder, filled with polite words instead of warmth. Still, seeing her name made my heart lift with cautious hope. I answered quickly, "Hello, Beta." There was a long pause on the other end, followed by a whisper so soft it barely felt real. "Grandpa's gone," she said, "and nothing's yours." My fingers tightened around the phone. The words felt sharp, deliberate, not just news, an announcement, a verdict. "Oh," I replied quietly, unsure what else to say. "I thought you should know," she added. Her tone carried an edge I didn't recognize anymore. Then the line went dead. For a moment I stood there frozen, the kettle whistling loudly beside me. My father, her grandfather, gone. And what did she mean by "nothing's yours"? I hadn't even thought about inheritance. I cared about him, not his money. A strange calm settled over me. Because at that very moment, he was sitting across from me at the table. My father looked up from his cup of tea and raised an eyebrow. Who was that? I couldn't help it, I smiled. 2 weeks earlier, my father had shown up at my door with a small suitcase and a tired expression. "I needed a break," he'd said simply. At 82, he was still sharp as ever, but something in his eyes felt heavy. He had been living with my younger brother Hamza for the past few years after my mother passed away. Hamza had insisted it was easier, closer to the city, more comfortable. But when my father arrived that evening, he looked relieved to be anywhere else. "What happened?" I asked gently. He hesitated before answering. "Your brother, he's busy, too busy to notice when I'm in the room." He never complained openly, but small details slipped out over the next few days. Meals forgotten, conversations ignored, financial papers pushed in front of him without explanation. One evening he sighed and said, "I feel like a guest in my own life." So he stayed with me. We fell back into old routines, morning tea, evening walks, quiet conversations that filled the house with warmth. For the first time in years, I saw him laugh freely. I didn't tell Zara or Hamza right away, not because I wanted to hide it, but because my father asked for peace. "Let me breathe for a while," he said. And I understood. Back in the kitchen, I looked at him now, alive, calm, sipping tea. "Zara just called," I said slowly. He tilted his head, and "She said you passed away," I replied. He almost choked on his drink. "Well, that's news to me." We exchanged confused glances before laughter bubbled up between us. It felt absurd, unbelievable. But beneath the laughter, something darker stirred. Why would my daughter say that? Later that evening, I decided to call Hamza. He answered on the third ring. "Hello." "I heard Dad died," I said bluntly. Silence. Then a nervous chuckle. "Who told you that?" "Zara." Another pause, longer this time. "Well, that's what everyone thinks," he admitted quietly. My stomach tightened. "What do you mean, everyone?" He hesitated before finally saying, "I told the family he passed away last week." My hands trembled. "Why would you do that?" There was a sigh on the other end. "Because I needed to finalize the estate quickly. Dad had already signed most of the documents before he left. It was easier if people believed." "Believed he was dead," I interrupted, my voice rising. "It's complicated," he muttered. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. My father watched me carefully. "What did he say?" I swallowed hard. "He told everyone you died so he could settle the inheritance." For a moment, my father looked older than I had ever seen him. Not fragile, just deeply disappointed. "I trusted him," he whispered. The next morning, my father sat quietly at the table, reviewing papers he had brought with him. "I never meant for money to divide you," he said. "I thought I was being fair." He explained how Hamza had pushed him to sign documents during a time when he was grieving and vulnerable. Nothing illegal, just rushed decisions, complicated clauses and promises of handling everything. My father looked up at me. "I want to set things right." A week later, we drove together to my brother's house. Cars filled the driveway. Family members gathered inside, dressed in somber colors, murmuring condolences over a man who was very much alive. When we stepped through the door, conversations froze mid-sentence. My aunt gasped, someone dropped a glass, my brother's face turned pale as chalk. "Assalamu alaikum," my father said calmly. Shock rippled through the room like a wave. Hamza stumbled forward. "Dad, you're alive," my father finished. The room buzzed with whispers and confusion. Zara stood near the back, eyes wide with disbelief. When our gazes met, guilt flickered across her face. "I only said what I was told," she murmured later, tears forming in her eyes. "Uncle Hamza said you didn't care, that Grandpa didn't want you involved." My heart softened. She had been manipulated too. My father addressed the family that afternoon. He spoke not with anger, but with clarity. "I'm not dead," he said simply, "and I'm not a bank account." He explained how hurt he felt, how betrayal from someone he trusted cut deeper than any loss of money. He announced that he was rewriting his will, with fairness, transparency, and respect. The room stayed silent. Hamza tried to argue, but his words sounded hollow against the truth. In the weeks that followed, things slowly began to heal. Zara visited more often, bringing homemade desserts and apologies that grew more sincere each time. We talked late into the night about misunderstandings, loyalty, and the importance of listening before believing. My father regained his spark. He started gardening again, humming old songs while planting flowers in my backyard. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, he turned to me and said, "Money reveals people, but love redeems them." I nodded, watching Zara laugh nearby as she helped him water the plants. Months later, my father gathered us all again, not for a funeral, but for a celebration of life. He shared stories, wisdom, and laughter. The will was finalized, but it wasn't the focus. Instead, he spoke about forgiveness and second chances. Even Hamza, humbled by everything that happened, apologized sincerely. It took time, but slowly, bridges rebuilt themselves. And sometimes, when I think back to that moment, the whisper on the phone telling me my father was gone and that nothing was mine, I still smile. Not because of inheritance or revenge, but because when the world thought he was gone, he was sitting right there beside me, alive, strong, and reminding me that family isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by who stays, who listens, and who chooses love when everything else falls apart.